Hi.
Hi, and hi, friends.
Hello to everybody. We're back.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. I mean, we've released some podcasts, but I feel like we needed a personal message to all of our followers, all of our listeners out there, all of our friends and family, right? So just taking a moment, we have had a lot of things happening in our life.
Yes, a lot of transitions. So kind of an unexpected hiatus happened with the podcast. You may or may not have noticed. Hopefully we have enough episodes for you to just kind of be checking out all of our old stuff that we've already released. But yeah, there's been a lot of life transitions, and you may notice a new studio.
Yeah, if you're watching us on YouTube, and if you're not, get on there and check it out because we have a whole new setup going on right now.
Yes. And so this is our first time recording in this room. So it may even sound a little different for you all. But it's exciting and it feels good. Michelle and I were just talking about how the table, it's like nice having, you can like rest our arms and
I feel like we grew up, like we graduated to the adult table. So now we're here. We've got a seat at the table. And yeah, we can put our cups down. We can rest our elbows on here. It just feels like we're elevated right now.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And we even have our podcast dog in here, and she's behaving for now. So she wanted to be a part of it. She did not like being outside of the podcast room. So.
But she's on her best behavior. There's like no movement. She's super still, right kind of by my feet here. So, if you hear a little barking or scuffling in the background, that's just our dog, Rue. Gretta's dog, Rue.
Rue loves Michelle. Anytime we go on a walk, she will spot her from like a mile away, and I have to release her off the leash and let her just go.
And I'm always like, oh my God, is she going to knock me down? Yeah. It gets a little scary, but I love my greetings. Imagine if everyone greeted you the way Rue greets you. You're good at that. You're a good greeter.
I am
actually,
Gretta.
I'm
a Labrador.
She learned that from you. I think she learned that from her mom. Aww, for sure. Yeah. Best greeter. So yeah, this is so fun. We're here. We're back in action. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of transitions that have happened in our own lives outside of the podcast. But we thought we'd have some fun and dive into our ceremony book for a moment.
Let's do it.
Just kind of see what comes up as we're in this new space. Gretta's filling into it.
It's funny. I wanted to go to a different page than I originally. Pain is a spell-breaking thing. It often reveals what has been holding us back all along. Wow. Interesting.
So what comes up for me anytime I hear pain is sort of like an alarm system. It's like, hey, I need to get your attention on something. So it may not always reflect like a bad thing.
Right.
It's kind of like...
Yeah, I'm thinking this is probably a lot deeper than we even realize.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to come back to this, the end of what we happened to
Let me read it again. I need to read it again.
Well, I want to read this other side too.
Okay.
Because I always go to the right, and it's a bad habit. Like, I don't necessarily think that's always like what,
Yeah.
Because we believe it's like a message from either our higher selves or spirit world. I don't know.
For sure.
Yeah. So it says, you have already let go of so much. You have already released so many days and all that they contained. It was never about whether or not you were able to let go, but whether or not you were willing. It was always about whether or not you would pick up tomorrow in its place. So I've gotten this one before. That's familiar to me. But I think it's interesting because if you're talking about transition, wow, that is so, I think that has a lot to do with.
Well, I mean, these both kind of relate because one is talking about what's holding you back and the other one is talking about kind of releasing, right? And like not being able to, but like, you're kind of stopping. You're always able to do it. It's just that what is it that you're choosing not to let go of, right? It's like more of that choice.
And I just think that's so funny because we were just talking about like how this table even came into play as part of the podcast and how we kind of just like didn't expect it or plan it. And then it just sort of happened. I don't know. That sounds weird, but
it makes sense to us.
Yes. Because we were like, oh, like this has been here for over a year. I think it's been here for like 2 years. and never was put together. And then it was like almost waiting for this moment.
Yes, it was totally waiting for us. And I think that's what happens is sometimes you get caught up in just what is usual and familiar and you sit in that space. Yeah. And so like the whole idea of us even moving the podcast over was something that just sort of showed up. And then, you know, we could have just shut that down and said, no. We put all the wallpaper up. Yeah. We decorated the room we wanted, you know, to decorate, and why move, right? But this opening up and letting go of what was and saying yes to new opportunities. And then we have this beautiful table that's supporting everything that we need right now. And these chairs that are holding us in such a way that, like, I don't know, I'm loving it. I really do feel it feels good.
It feels fresh and new. Yeah. And I'm like excited for what the future holds. I think we're all going through this massive shift right now. I mean, I wonder if our listeners are feeling this too. I just think there's a lot of moving parts happening. There's like an uneasiness that comes with that. But then there's also like, because we're trying to hang on to what was, but then as soon as you let go and release, then you can allow the new things to come in. And I kind of feel like that's what's happening here. It's like we're allowing the podcast to grow, allowing, you know, the shift to take place.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you're explaining it that way, because before we started recording, I was telling you about how I feel like I'm dropping everything, not like dropping balls in terms of, you know, forgetting stuff that I got to do, but like physically. I went to go put a tea kettle down the other day and it literally slid off of the table, and I had a top to a pot and I just dropped it. Like when I feel like there's shifts happening in the universe, there's something in me that is so sensitive to all of that. But the cool thing is I was really upset. And it was funny when I told you I dropped the tea kettle, you're like, your nice tea kettle? Really that's the glass one. And I'm like, yes. And I love that tea kettle. I use it literally every day. But in picking up the pieces of it, I realized, you know what? I can get another one. And there's actually this beautiful ceramic one that I've been wanting. And so I was able to purchase that. And I look at that metaphorically as, you know, I can be sad and sit in that space of like, why are all these pieces literally crumbling? Why is everything rattling around me? Or I can take that opportunity to say, oh my gosh, but wait, this provides room for something new and different. Yes. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening as we're even transitioning with the podcast.
Yes. I've had a lot of physical things breaking too. And they're not things that I personally broke, but like other things have just happened. And they're things that I've had for a really long time, like years and years and years. Like I had these 2 lamps and they went together and one of them got broken. And it's like, okay, like release that. Like things like that used to really bother me. I think just I've never done well with losing things getting broken. I like cared too much about these physical things. And I knew that about myself. And so there does feel like there's this kind of releasing of that. But then just recently, just a couple days ago, I found out about some drawings that my grandma's a really good artist. This is a story, like, I don't think I've shared this on the podcast. So I was Gretchen. That's what was on my original birth certificate. And I just did not connect with that name for whatever reason. From a very early age, I wanted to change it. I didn't feel connected at all. I mean, I think I wanted to be like Crystal or something like that. This was the 80s. Yes. Something that sounded beautiful, or like Christina with an A on the end. So my grandma would draw these beautiful drawings of old Hollywood stars. And then she would let me color them in. But like these drawings were full of detail. Like you could see the little beading on the dresses. And I just was so blown away that she could even draw like that. And I just loved it. So I'd go over to her house, she'd draw, and in this big notebook, and it was our thing. And I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. And she said, yeah, I would color and I would just like outside the lines and everything. And she was so sweet. Like just, I think that in itself, the fact that she spent all that time on these drawings, but then that's my grandma in a nutshell. Like she let me play with china out of her cabinet when I was little. Like, she just never cared about things like that. She just let me be free and be a kid. And she once drew Greta Garbo. And that was the first time I had heard the name Greta. And I was like, that's my name now. I just decided, like,
I'm declaring this change.
I was like, what? This sounds like Gretchen, but it has an A on the end. And that was it. And so that's how I became Greta. And my mom was cool enough to roll with it.
That is awesome, especially like back then. I mean, people change their names now and it's very, like, now it's just kind of the norm. But like back then, nobody just chose to change their name. And then the parent was like, yeah, we're going to go with that. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And you know, with my teachers and everybody. And it was like it was meant to be.
Wow.
But I had been asking my grandma for that notebook. We couldn't find it. It was like stacked underneath a bunch of stuff in one of her closets. I just found out that someone that came to like help tidy up her house or something, they threw it away. They didn't know that these were meaningful. And my grandma was like sick to her stomach even having to tell me this because she knew I really wanted them. My grandma's 94 years old. She just had her 94th birthday. And so in that way of like loss, just having to process that has been a whole other level of a challenge for me. It's like, it was one thing and it was just kind of like these objects that I'd had for a long time. But now this one really hurt.
Well, there's deep meaning in all that. I mean, you even associating it with your name, which is your identity.
I wanted those drawings. I would have framed a lot of them. Like, they were invaluable to me. And, you know, it just sucks. Someone came in, they didn't know any of this, and they tossed it out with the trash. And it's like, it's heartbreaking. It is a loss. But I think, you know, like you were saying, you have to ask yourself, well, what is this teaching me? I have the memory of them. I have the story that I was able to just share with you all, which is cool. Like, at least I have that story.
Yeah, now it's out in the universe forever.
Yeah, and maybe I wouldn't even have talked about it, you know? But it's like those kind of things, they do sting. But I think it is important to ask, like, what is this here to teach me?
And that's the pain that the book was referring to. It's like there are those moments that we don't even think about. And what is that pain there to teach us and tell us?
There you go. That was it. I knew it would come. I knew it would come. There's always, it's crazy. That book always resonates somehow with what we're talking about.
It does.
It's a trip.
I know. And I love sometimes when we haven't really, you know, gotten together to do this and we just kind of go to the book as our guide. Like, we might have an idea in our head about what we want to talk about, but then we just open up to like, well, what is, you know, what's here? What's the message we're supposed to receive? And somehow it ties into our gut feel, our intuition, right? Something we're already kind of connecting with, and how we can just really expand and find the meanings in all of it. So,
and we've had guests come on and they will, you know, turn to a page and maybe it doesn't even make sense. At the end of it, it will all tie together, like what you just beautifully did with this one. And it is such a funny thing. And I just love doing it. It's so fun. But yeah, we've been transitioning. And I think that is part of transition, is just letting go and releasing and allowing. And there's so many moving parts. So I'm officially an empty nester. And that has had some ebbs and flows. It's great to see that my kid is doing well. Both of my kids are, and they're in the same town. So that's been such a blessing. As a mom, actually recently, my son just got so sick, as they always do when they go to a college town. So such a petri dish of all the stuff.
Everybody's germs.
And she was there to take care of him and make sure he got to the doctors and pick up his prescription. So I'm really so blessed to have that.
I mean, that is truly like warms a mother's heart, right? To know that they have each other like that.
And so that's the bright side of things, is they're together. They're both doing well. They're thriving, happy. Then there's the other side of it, which, you know, I struggled, and I shared this on another podcast about my daughter leaving. I think there is something about your firstborn going to college, like you've just never done this before. Nobody had, like, it was all new and scary. And, there's this awareness of, oh, like those child raising years are coming to an end. And what is that going to look like?
And that was a holding on to. I remember when you were going through that with Lexi, where it was like, I want to just capture every last moment because what is happening next, right? And it was like just preserving and holding on. Yes. So I do remember that.
Oh, and I was putting my family through hell because everything was a moment to like, I was gripping so tight. And then now with being an actual empty nester, my husband, it's like, okay, there's awesome things about that too. I'm not going to lie. But I have had weird moments of grief that have just come up out of nowhere and hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I was walking my dog and walked by a dog park where they have all this cute little obstacle course set up for dogs, and had a full-on flashback of my son at like 8 years old running Ruth through the obstacle course, teaching her how to do it when she was just a puppy still. And oh my God, the waterworks. Like, and I was having a great day. I wasn't even thinking about anything. And it just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, wow, that was a moment. Mm-hmm. And all that equipment's still there, but he's gone and I'm a different person and we've all grown in different ways. And I mean, time is just such a funny thing.
Have you seen that movie Here by Tom Hanks?
No.
Oh, it's, from what I understand, it's like they used AI. It was like one of the first movies maybe that they really used AI to like show people in younger versions of themselves. Anyway, it
kind of wraps that up. Like,
yeah, but it was so fascinating because it really went into the story about a house, and it was kind of everything you're describing, like all this different energy that kind of like the structure of the house was there, but it showed you like way back when what it looked like in different time period when somebody was living in that home to like the modern times.
I just got chills.
It is so, I really liked it. I felt like it just truly summed up like what it described, like and it's emotional and it's like happy and it's sad and it's all the things, right? But it just really popped into my head because I just saw it recently and I was kind of in and out of it, but it is that. It's like when you really look at how time passes and you hold on to those little monuments, right? Like you saw the structure and that triggered a memory. And so I think what's fun too about us having a platform like this is we do get to come back to these memories in time and talk about how to process them and where we are now. Yeah. So even hearing your story about, what those pictures meant to you and the connection there, not just of, you getting your name, but also your connection to your grandma, and how that time is passing. Right. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just think, I know the new year always gets us to reflect on, like the past year and things like that. But I think that especially when children are moving into different phases and having those transitions, all those moments give us time to reflect on the transitions that we're constantly going through in life. Like everything is moving all the time.
It's a good reminder to stay present. I know we talk about it all the time, but it's hard to do because life is so chaotic and busy. I
know we get on autopilot. That's just the reality, right? Like we do the normal, you wake up, you brush your teeth, you kind of, some people have their coffee, like you have your rituals that you just do. And when you deviate from that, sometimes it feels uncomfortable, right? And different. It's like starting a new diet plan or, new workout, and it feels weird. But when you reflect on what those moments meant to you and you open up to like, what else can I be doing? Like maybe we didn't think about how we could have changed something and how our day could have even been more rich if we added this or that. But because we get stuck in those rituals, we don't open up to that, right?
Well, I think what I will say, and it kind of goes along with what you're saying, is like even just little things like driving the kids to school. So now that I'm on the other side of this, for all you moms that are in the chaotic mornings and the rush of getting everybody off to where they need to be, it's like if you can just try to remember that this is just a moment in time and it's fleeting. I know that's easy for me to say now that I'm on the other side of things, My mornings are very calm. There's a lot of great things about it too. It's like my time is my own. I get to kind of do what I want and have a slow morning, and I'm not rushing off. All of our friends were talking about getting the kids to their sports physicals. It's that time of year. It's like there's certain things I don't miss, if I'm being totally honest. But
that's okay. You can be honest. That's what we're here for. Talk about truth.
I did see a video that also brought me to tears, and it was this mom. She did such a good job kind of showing the emotion that you can feel when your kids are grown. Looking back in the back seat that's now empty. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, if you find yourself, you're just in the chaos, you're in the routine, it's like try to just remind yourself to cherish it. Before your kids get their driver's license is really the time that you can get to know them, talk about all the things they'll open up to you because they're kind of trapped in the car.
Car time, yeah. Seatbelt on, it's the best time for sure.
Once they have their driver's license, that it's so exciting and you're happy for them and you get caught up in that. But then,
but they're gone.
They're gone.
They want to do their own thing. They've got the sense of freedom now.
Yeah, I remember realizing that after the fact, oh shit, that phase is over. It's just.
It's part of the transition.
Yeah.
It's part of that transition in life. And so sometimes it comes in those types of phases. Sometimes it's, new careers, new home, we're always in a state of transition. But I do feel that sometimes we feel it more than other times.
Yeah.
Right now, you were telling me a little bit ago about how literally within the earth, there's certain energetic things that are happening.
The Schumann resonance, I believe is what it's called, where they measure the earth's natural vibration. And it does change. It doesn't just consistently stay the same, but it's really going haywire right now, which I think is
I feel it
interesting with you just randomly dropping shit everywhere.
No, seriously. There are so many moments where when I'm in a phase like that, it's what's going on? I don't have any crazy diagnosis, thank God. I am healthy right now, but I go through these moments and then when I start talking to someone who's either aligned with I don't know what the planets are doing or just has, read an article about something going on in the earth, whatever. And it's it makes sense. Okay, this is why I'm a little off right now. It's kind of crazy when you really start to fine tune into those things.
Yeah.
There's vibrations happening all around us all the time. And I think we forget that everything is made up of energy,
I know with even our previous podcast guest and learning about vibration. And sound.
Yes,
and
that's a big one.
The things that we can't see that are still affecting us.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it's funny. I do think there's just this shifting going on with a lot of people and a lot of things. We're going through something right now for sure.
We are. And I guess I even ask those listening, think about what is going on with you right now in this moment. Have you noticed anything that's been a little different or funky or just a difficult time that you might be experiencing as you're in transition, with something going on in your life?
Rue keeps chiming in. Rue's making all these little groans. She's
Yes, girl. Yes, that is what I'm saying.
I do think she wants to be part of the conversation about this.
Does. She's nice and still now, though. She found her spot.
Yeah.
I know. So yeah, it's really feeling into those things, physically feeling into those things. Because again, I think we get in our head so much that we're trying to outthink a lot of things that we experience. But sometimes we have to just sit back and go, let me just tap into what my body is trying to communicate to me.
Sort of this space that I'm finding myself in, and the drawings getting tossed really challenged me with that because it was that threw me off for a couple days. But I do feel this feeling of like I was saying before, allowing, opening up and allowing and kind of just observing, I think is even bigger. I don't need to be such an active force.
Yes.
I can just sort of sit back and observe. And
that's high level shit. When you can kind of become the witness of your own life and the witness of your actions. That is really high level.
Awesome.
So good job. Good job, girl. You're elevating.
I do feel I probably since I turned about 38, I started feeling more anxious and just having more anxiety. And if I think back of like what I was going through at that time, I probably was just trying to grip on a lot. And we've talked about that before too, my struggle with that and releasing, and it has been a long process. But yeah, I do feel like my anxiety has never been better. Like I feel so much calmer and more grounded than I have in a long time.
That's awesome.
Even with like this weirdness that's happening that I definitely can feel.
All the things that are shifting around you, and like, how can I be that anchor, in the midst of chaos? Yeah. What do they call it? It's like the eye of the storm, like that center space that's just kind of be still, right? And then all this stuff is happening everywhere else. Yeah. It's really interesting. I love that we can actually sit and have these moments to think about these things, like really carve out time to sit and be in that place. Cause I feel like that's part of the work too.
Yeah.
The work that we're constantly doing to like become better people in the world and in our families. And I almost feel like these are therapeutic moments for us when we get to have the mic definitely. And like dissect and really kind of analyze some of these things. Like I feel very grateful that we have this time to do that together and to bring it out to all of our friends, who are listening.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that this is bringing up some stuff in everyone listening, like you said, look at your own life and see where maybe there's some things that are shifting. I mean, we were talking earlier about this. There's Dolores Cannon. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she talked about the earth like energetically splitting into two. And I mean, it's a little out there, but I'm always interested in anything like that.
Why not explore it a little bit?
Yeah, like I'm not saying it's like for real what's happening, but it could be. We don't know. There's things we don't know when we can't explain. And I think what I love about our conversations is that there is an openness and like a non-judgment on these type of conversations. It's like we could go anywhere with it, and nothing's off limits.
Yep.
And nothing's black and white and for certain, because at the end of the day, we don't know.
We don't. And I think also in kind of piggybacking what you're saying is this is what I think connected you and I too, is that from the moment we met, we were able to dig into some things that, you may throw this out on the table to someone and they're like, okay, this chick is a little crazy. Like, what is she listening to? What is she reading? But we took it as, oh my God, like this is exciting. Like tell me more about what you know, and I'll tell you what I know, and let's dig in together and then ask others what they know and keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
But I think that's really how we expand our minds. I don't know. You know me. I love to learn. So not by books. Like I don't want to be reading all kinds of stuff, but I do love just being curious about life. And I think sometimes, like for me personally, I'll just speak for myself, but like life can get so boring sometimes doing the same routine thing over and over again that when you really step out for a moment, and that's why I think I love about interviewing people, because we all live our lives in a different way. When you start asking people questions, you find out so much more about so many things, and it's intriguing. And it doesn't mean that you have to live your life the same way somebody else does, but it is so fascinating that there are just so many different ways of being in the world, right? And how we all were raised and what we do for careers, what our neighbor, I mean, I don't know if anyone else thinks this, I don't know, I'm going to throw it out there, but like when you're ever walking around a neighborhood, do you look at individual homes and just think, what is going on in each home that I just walked past? Like, whether there's a traditional family, nuclear family, mom, dad, some kids, or is it like, a lesbian couple that lives there, or is it a single dude? Like,
you're just curious.
I'm so curious, like what's going on around me?
Peeking in the window.
If you see me at your window. It's just out of curiosity, I just want to know. But it's because it's so fascinating. It's like we all
analyze their yard. I'm like, oh, they didn't fix their yard, or they need to do that.
Why you got that kind of grass?
Oh, I love that yard. I'm going to do that in my yard.
Right? Taking notes. So if you see Greta standing in your yard,
I'm judging
that's what
it.
she's doing. So you better have some nice stuff out there. Change your little signs out real quick.
Why the fuck didn't you take your Christmas lights down? That's what I want to know.
We are in February. Take those things down. Unless they change colors. I do admire the people that put the lights up and then every holiday they start to change the color. It's like, oh, Valentine's Day, we got red.
Well, I just did that with my trees out front, and I'm so excited to change them to different colors.
Yes.
I mean, with the Super Bowl had just passed. If it was the Niners, I would have had it red and gold, but I was like, I don't care about those teams.
Whatever. I know. Speaking of the Super Bowl, I don't know. I thought it was interesting because I felt like everyone was just wearing jerseys of like whatever team they loved.
Yeah.
I was at church that day and then went to a party, but it was just funny to see that, I didn't see many Chiefs or Eagle jerseys. It was like people were, and I know we're from the Bay Area, so of course, we're going to be more Raider 49er heavy. But anyway, it was just kind of fun to see. Again, why are you wearing what you're wearing? Like, what's your whole reasoning behind that? It's just fun to ask people questions. Get to know why.
You just brought me back to thinking about like the guests that we've had on, and I did notice that it is so cool, like listening to each person's individual journey, especially when you find out the path that brought them to where they ended up, being able to help people or making a difference, or, why we want them on the podcast. Yeah. And so many of them, we've seen the common thread of they just started asking themselves questions like, what am I drawn to? What is interesting me? What is calling me? And they kind of just bravely also released and like tried, went down a path without knowing where it was going to end up going. And so I think when you are able to just like sit back and be that person that observes and watches, you are able to allow these pathways to open up in front of you and get that guidance that so many of our guests have had. They really do. You do receive little nudges along the way if you listen. But I think if you're so caught up in the doing and the checklist, you're never going to see it. You're going to miss it. It's going to go right over your head. And
well, this is also, I think, where the wise sages, always say like you have to have that time of silence, because if we're, and this is kind of a funny little thing to think about, but the whole concept of like, we've got two ears and one mouth, like if we can really let our ears work a little more and be in that place of listening versus the doing and the talking and the, moving forward all the time, like you do have to have those moments to just stop. And especially I think when it is most chaotic around us is probably the most important time.
Oh, you just made me think. And, this is not a political show at all. And I'm definitely not going there. But I do think there's an energy around the shifting that's happening in politics right now too. Yeah. And regardless of how you feel about it. And I think the biggest thing what I've noticed and what I'm feeling in my heart is like, I just want people to try to not live in a place of fear and try to, just like with everything else, what is this here to teach us? What is opening up? Because whatever it is, there is this transition happening and we don't know for what reason necessarily. And people feel very differently about it. It's very polarizing, which I think is the worst thing. I think we need to all come together and then bring the power to the people.
Right. Rise up together.
Yes.
But it is true. It's like how it's like, I think everyone's coming from a place of this personal space too, of how it's impacting their lives. Right. Yeah. And it is hard sometimes to see the bigger picture, whatever that looks like. I don't even know. Like, I have no
we don't know where we're going. Right. No. We just know things are changing right now, like on a massive level. Gosh, it just seems like there's so many layers of change that's happening right now. And, whether it's Dolores Cannon and there's two earths and different vibrations and like this spiritual thing that we can't see, or who knows what it's making way for. But as someone that is an optimistic person, I choose to believe and hold on to my faith that things will always be working towards the greater good at the end of the day.
Yes, and also I just want to add to that because I love that you said that because it is a choice. We can choose to be here or there. And even in the hardest times, I mean, and we're not dismissing that like people aren't being impacted by this in ways that like, I can't understand, right? I mean, not that at all. But I think no matter what you're given in life, whatever those circumstances look like, that is the choice is I can sit and I can feel defeated and I can be sad and you have to feel and grieve and you got to move through emotions. That's another transition, right? Like moving through that process. But at the same time, I can take what I know and I can really sit back and listen and come into this place of what can I do with what is happening in this moment?
Yes. And how can I show up in the world in the way of love energy?
Yeah.
Okay. So not fear, not anti, not separation, but in a way of love. And like, yeah, we can't control like the bigger things in life that are happening. And I think that's why I've always hated politics is because I've always felt like I can't do anything about any of this anyway.
Yeah, like I could have 1,000 opinions, but like, is it really going to impact what the president's doing, or what the governor's doing or whatever by me alone,
But in my community, I can show up. With my friends, I can show up. Like there's still things that I can do that bring joy and bring love. Yeah. And so it is a decision and it is a choice. And, I mean, even going back to like the things that little things we've lost, it's like a decision. I can let that ruin my day or I can move forward. And
so I'm going to give a quick little shout out to a friend of mine who is an avid listener of our podcast. But, we were talking the other day about all these kinds of situations and she works in our school district and she happens to be a translator. And right now, a lot of the work that she's doing is even just to ease the minds of all these immigrants who are really fearful about themselves or their families, getting swept up and just deported. And so, her role and even showing up to work is, and this isn't part of her job description, but like her presence in the way that she's making these individuals feel is that they even have a safe place to go to when they're at school, so I think that's a perfect example though of what you're saying is like, how am I going to show up in my community and around the environments that I do have some level of control over?
Regardless of what side of the fence you're on, how can you show up? How can you make the world a better place?
Absolutely. Yep. I would like to think that we're all kind of walking in a place of love and forgiveness and acceptance. And, I mean, none of us are holier than thou. So we have our own struggles that we were talking to just about before Greta and I started recording, we were talking about kind of the concept of good and evil, and just feeling also, I think that's the other shifting that we feel is kind of this energy pool, amongst the good and evil and like, what you're battling all the time, right? And even in our own little temptations, there's times where it's like we're battling our own inner thoughts, about good and bad and how we feel about things. But again, it just goes back to when I wake up and open my eyes, to this day, that's a new day every day. Yeah. Like, what are the choices that I'm going to make to continue to live in a place that feels good and true to me, right? Because, and that's the other tapping into our bodies and our intuition is what is it that I'm doing right now in this moment that feels right and is aligned? Like if I don't align with other things that might be happening outside of me, what can I control and align so that I can live and feel a freedom? Because that's really what it is. I mean, when we start living in fear, it's like there's this force that has a stronghold on us, and doesn't allow us to really live our full life.
And we all have come across people like that. Like, oh my God, my husband was so sweet and he got me flowers the other day. But the person that delivered the flowers went on this political rant with me. And I'm like, oh girl, you were talking to the wrong person. And she was so negative and she was so filled with fear. And she just told me that she had just had a double mastectomy 2 years ago and like, so cancer and everything. And I'm just thinking like, well, I actually told her, I go, okay, it's fair that you feel all of these things, but like, please choose to not live in fear. That is such a toxic energy. I mean, I feel like it might as well be poison that you, if you are just stewing in this worst case scenario mindset all the time, it's toxic, and you could be used for so much more than that.
Right. I mean, think about her even just showing up at a doorstep to deliver something beautiful to somebody, right? It's like you are that delivery person. I mean, the smile that you could bring and the warmth that you can, bring to this person's doorstep, like that alone, she doesn't know what you were going through.
No.
You could have also had a double mastectomy, and she didn't even, she wouldn't have known. But like,
but I could
that's
feel
the choice.
The energy. Just, I don't necessarily surround myself with a lot of people like that, but it's like every once in a while you come across someone like that and you're just like, oh, your headspace. You got to change your mindset. Like it's a limiting mindset. And it's all based in negativity.
And that's where the walls go up, and that's where the separation happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that we're really touching on is, what can we do collectively together to be more cohesive and actually like work together for the good of humanity, right? Like we're on this planet for a short period of time, and we know how quickly life passes. We know some get less, breaths than others. And so while you're here, like, what do you want to do? How do you want to feel? And it is hard, it's also hard to think about that if you're in a home that is filled with negativity. But again, even in that moment, can you be that light? Can you choose to find those little nuggets, the little sparkles that might come up? I don't want to totally go off on this because I don't even remember the guy's name, but there was a monk that I listened to, and he was in Tibet, and he was in jail, and like it's fucking awful what they did to this person when they captivated him. But to hear him speak and hear what he had gone through, in that moment where there were like physical restraints on him, and his main message was like, they cannot change my way of thinking. They could not change the thoughts that I had. No matter what they did physically to me, no matter what they said to me, I still had a choice to have my own thoughts.
Ultimately, we have control over our thoughts. Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's the basis,
That is powerful. And I've heard of other like captives and things like that saying the same thing.
Right. So this isn't coming from Michelle, who on the surface seems like, oh, well, you've got a husband and kids and your life seems great, and blah, blah, blah. Like we're not communicating these things from like a place of what people might look at as like privilege, or I don't know, whatever you want to freaking call it.
How you should live.
No,
no. Have all the answer.
No. But what I am saying is it is possible, because I have met those people that have been in very, horrible situations, and it's still possible, so if you like come in with that mindset and, listen, hey, there's going to be dark days. Like there's going to be days where you're like, what the fuck? Like nothing feels good. Nothing looks good. Yeah. Like I'm sad. I'm this, whatever it is that you're going through. But we don't want to sit in that too long, and know that, again, if we were taking it back to transitions, like if we look at everything as a transition, we know that like there's always the other side of that.
This is a temporary thing that is happening. And I think you could apply that to so much of what's going on right now. And the question I always ask, and I've said this many times on the podcast, is what is this here to teach me? I just think that is such an empowering question. And so when you are in those dark moments, because yes, we're going to have them. There's more in the future. I've had plenty in the past. Like they're going to happen. And it's just like, my mindset around life, I think has really helped me through a lot of things, is that life is school. We are here. Our soul has come here to have these experiences and learn. And none of that is, or I guess I shouldn't say, there's the highs and lows. There's the beautiful, joyous moments that make life so rich and precious and worth living. And then the opposite of that, the yin and the yang, is that there is the negative. There's the dark things that happen that we grow through.
Yeah.
And
without having those heavy things, we can't even really truly appreciate how good some things are, right? Because if you don't have the opposite, then you're just kind of living in this like place of stagnation, and where everything's just like balanced, and which ultimately we want to try to live as balanced as we possibly can. But again, ancient wisdom tells us that like without the bad, there is no good. Like you have to have, that is the balance, is both. I know.
I mean, it made me think of like what I always would compare. Well, like a thought that I had about that is when I was before I had kids and then after I had kids. I always use that as like
BK.
Yeah, because I was living the life before kids. Like my husband and I were going out to the bars all the time. We were having so much fun. We would have big house parties. Like we would travel. We had a great life. But then I had kids and it was, for me, I'm not saying everybody needs to experience this, but for me, it was like, whoa, what was I doing before I had kids? It didn't really have the same amount of value as after the kids came into my life. It was like, now, like, everything is just so much better. Like everything is, there's just like this, I cherished everything so much more. And the experiences were richer. And that's my personal experience with having
totally.
kids.
And talk about a transition.
Yeah, true. But it's like, if I didn't have that to compare it to, it's like you have to have that contrast in life.
Right. Yeah. There's always a contrast. You've got to have like something to really put everything in like it gives it meaning, it gives it greater meaning in the richness. And I don't know. I mean, you and I obviously love to dig into all this kind of stuff because I think even by doing that, it shows us that life is rich and it gives us that moment and that time to really sink our teeth into things and not just go through life feeling like we are on autopilot,
or like a victim.
Yeah.
I think that's something else you and I share is we had to make decisions to not be victims in life. Like, it would have felt like the easy route at certain times, but like, it's so much more empowering when you stop those thoughts. And you know what? They even creep in sometimes here and there. Like I was just in a little argument with my husband over something and I was like kind of going into my little victim stories about things and I was like, what am I doing? Like, no, I am not the victim. Like it's like switching it around in your head and catching it as soon as those little temptation to play that role starts.
But that's part of the work though. I think like when you dedicate yourself to becoming a better version of you, right? And really like reading, sitting back, listening, all those things, you can catch yourself a little quicker as opposed to someone who's just like, I don't want to think about any of this. I just want to live my life. I don't want to like dig into all this. And it's like, okay, that's fine, right? But you'll notice like the evolution of how you become a different person and talk about right now like self-regulation. I mean, I think so many people, especially with all this chaos happening around us, it's like, how do we regulate our nervous systems and all of this? And so when you have those moments of catching yourself in the moment, you can change that energy that's happening.
And sometimes you don't want to because then you have to take responsibility, which is what I had to do. And I didn't want to do that. So
I remember my days of being angry, like really angry. I mean, I had to work through all that
I love when
bullshit.
we go back to these angry Michelle.
Oh man. But it's like, oh my God, I think about it now and I'm like, it was much easier to freaking just storm out and yell out what I had to say.
Oh my gosh.
Freaking outburst here and there, and I felt like I had a lovely release, but like the people that were on the other end of that got left with, words and the energy that I dumped out on them. And, our house in general is just such a calmer, more relaxed place to be having gone through all of that, So glad I'm not on that side as much as sometimes it does seem easier to be in that space, but it's not good for anybody.
No.
So no.
I used to be the queen of storming out, saying my thing and then storming out.
Dropping that on you. I'm dropping the mic. You can't pick it up. I'm walking out, Oh my God. Yeah. Transitions. So that was also a transition. Angry Michelle, happy Michelle. Anyway, oh my gosh, it's been fun to be back here and play around and, just in our new space. And you'll see this evolve too, because we're not done, right? Greta's got some fun decorating to do and some other things if you're watching us. But so good.
Yeah. Good to be back, girl.
Yeah, it is good to be back. Thanks for listening.